tomato nahi Zomato.
Pretty much 80% all women in the company.
I was managing the onboarding at CRED email ID.
Even the Shark Tank experience. Yeah.
Very big backlash.
But after that, what?
And I think the Barbie movie is a masterclass in collaborations and partnerships done.
Consumer behavior changes every 5 kilometers.
When I was with Shah Rukh, I was infamous for negotiation.
Sales is a push, marketing is a pull, and partnerships is a blend of both.
Never have I ever cried in office because of work stress.
A lot.
My God.
Hi everyone, welcome to the FoundHers podcast. This episode is something very different, something that I'm wanting to explore, where we don't have only one guest, but we have two guests from very different industries here to share their insights about the world of partnerships, sales, and marketing. We three are just going to be here having a chat like girls do at a dinner table and sharing our insights so that you all can take away something. Today with me, I have Bhavna Jeswani, co-founder Rock Paper Rum, and Vishakha Acharya, founder of PartnerPod. Hi guys, how are you all doing today?
Good.
Good, Hinal.
So hey Bhavna, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so currently I'm the co-founder of Rock Paper Rum. Me and my husband started this, back in October 2022.
Wow.
Before that, 17 years I've been in media and entertainment space. I've largely done film marketing. I used to head marketing for Jungi Pictures, and before that I was with Red Chillies Entertainment and Kolkata Knight Riders, where I was taking care of media strategy and communications for them. And then decided to, I was on a small sabbatical, and then my husband was just, actually then boyfriend, now husband. But he was experimenting with this whole, craft liquor scene booming in India. And, he came from the background as well. So, we decided to start our own brand, which is called Rock Paper Rum. And so it's been a good journey so far, 2.5 years, 9 states and counting more.
Vishakha, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Currently, I'm the founder of PartnerPod. What we do at PartnerPod is we help emerging brands and businesses with their overall partnership strategy as well as enablement, right? So everything from revenue-based partnerships, brand collaborations, the entire kind of ecosystem is something that we cover. I've been doing this for the past year and a half now, but before that, I've always been in the startup ecosystem for the better part of a decade. I started my career off at Zomato. This is back in 2013 when nobody knew what Zomato was. I used to go out to restaurants and say, tomato nahi Zomato. So, that's really where it came from. And did a lot of obviously sales, marketing and partnerships there. I then moved on to Epigamia, which is obviously from tech to product. So got a little bit of a feel of what does it mean to work and build out a product-based business as well. I then moved on and came back to tech and worked at CRED, where I actually kind of was looking at all of their reward partnerships and was lucky enough to be a part of the team that helped launch the CRED store. So yeah, and I got to kind of be a part and at the center of the whole D2C boom in India during the pandemic. So got to learn a lot there. And then kind of pivoted and started doing my own thing.
I love that you all had such detailed intros. So I think let's just start with this conversation with the first most basic is what is the difference for both of you between partnerships, sales and marketing?
If I have to speak, say in the alcohol space, right? Sales would be like pretty much getting the product on the shelves, you know? So making sure it's available at retailers, making sure it's available at bars and restaurants. So that would be sales. Marketing would be getting it off the shelves. So making sure there's a lot of brand awareness, you're doing enough activations, building community experiences where the consumer knows, okay, Rock Paper Rum exists. So getting it off the shelf, someone going and buying it or ordering at a bar and restaurant. It really depends. But at the end of the day, I think partnerships help you amplify both sales and marketing.
Fair. What about you?
Yeah, so in my view, to keep it really simple, sales is a push, marketing is a pull, and partnerships is a blend of both.
Nice.
So sales is a revenue generator, marketing is a revenue burner, and partnerships is with, of course, you seeing the upside of it a little later. And partnerships again become a blend of both, where in some partnerships you'll make money, some partnerships you'll burn money, but you'll get brand awareness out of it, right?
You mentioned both of you all focused on how partnerships is a blend of sales and marketing. I always wondered partnerships as a vertical under sales, because I felt like partnerships are more sales focused. But like, I think what you all rightly said, right? Like, not all partnerships are going to get you a sale.
Yeah.
Some could just probably be for brand awareness. Nowadays, these terms are used loosely, because marketing could also mean, oh, you're doing marketing for me, okay, do influencer marketing also. But that's also partnerships. So can you all both tell me, like, what really falls under partnerships when it comes to a product-based business in India?
I don't think you can, like there's no definition per se that, okay, this is what partnership is. Like she said, right, depending on, say, if it's beverage, right, and in this case, should I take rock, paper, rum as example?
Yes,
of course,
yes,
since
please.
but I mean, whether it's rock, paper, rum or something else, right? Let's just take beverage as an example, right? Now, partnership could also mean that, you've sort of collaborated, say, if, I've probably collaborated with, say, a mixer brand, for example. But it does not mean that I cannot, collaborate, with, say, with a snacking brand.
Right.
Or a drinking game brand, So it can go in any direction. At the end of the day, I feel like what's important is, I think you get into these partnerships if you're trying to target the same audience.
There have been a lot of partnerships that have not worked, right? Like, when you were saying this, the only thing on my head was when H&M and Sabyasachi happened. It was a very big backlash, because exactly the audience was different. And that made the Sabyasachi audience also feel like, how could you put me to an H&M level as well as vice versa?
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
Like you rightly said, you took the Sabyasachi example. I don't think you were really thinking about the customer. A great example of a collaboration or a partnership that worked really well in my view is the Mokobara and Indigo partnership, where they came up with a Indigo branded suitcase. So that was one thing, right? It's easy to come up with a suitcase which can be primarily in Indigo colors. You're slapping on the blue color and putting a suitcase. But what they did extra was, they said anybody who is actually carrying this suitcase gets extra 2 or 3 kgs of baggage allowance on Indigo. Now think about how powerful that is, right? When one is traveling, you are dying for more baggage allowance, and that's what caused all the difference to really create a buzz and probably even help with conversions for that product. So you always need to think one step further and always think about the customer in this entire thing.
Yeah, customer is king. And
And that will always be the case.
Yeah, that will always be the case. I don't think that factor changes, even though we've seen marketing evolve so much, partnerships evolve so much, but I don't see that one truth of customer, right? With every episode that I do with every guest, like when I hear, the only thing I'm listening is, we're listening to our customers.
Yeah.
And I think that's where even a lot of successful brands have come out to play, when you're listening to what your customers doing. Today, when I say collaboration, I look at it on a very online aspect, very strategic aspect. Either there is some influencer who's come in, or it is 2 brands who have got together, or they made a gift box, or they're trying to target any occasion, right? For you, because you come from a very different industry, and in your past experience also, those collaborations, I'm sure, have not been easy, right? When you look at Barbie, Barbie was a movie, and they did something very different. So how has your experience been in that aspect, particularly with collaborations beyond just what you see online?
And I feel like sometimes, instead of just focusing only on digital, right? If brands were to also sort of look at what partnerships can be done, offline, whether it's with TV, whether it is with print partnerships, and there's so much one can do. Like for films, when we used to do, when I was with Shah Rukh, right? I'm sure we've all seen Kapil Sharma show, right? We were one of the early ones who actually started going on the show to promote a film. On a normal day, what happens is, if you have an actor coming on the show, right, the actor gets paid for it. But this was a very interesting barter partnership, where what would happen is, actors would go to promote their film. So they would get all the visibility. The channel did not have to pay actors. And in return, not only they would promote that, like in the sense the show, but even like small snippets and pieces of when the movie is releasing. Now, if I had to actually go buy that kind of media, right, and television is very, very high value media, right, that would have costed me a few crores, right, because, these are all primetime channels, the spots are very expensive. So I feel like people have to think differently and beyond. Like we've tied up with, for example, there used to be, if say a movie was releasing around IPL, right, or any kind of sporting activity, you would tie up with the sports channel. You would actually do it in a way where it's a win-win for both, right? So I've suddenly gotten a value of few crores media. They've gotten an actor to build the buzz, get more TRPs, get more people to view the content, right? So it's a win-win. So I feel like brands today are all focused very much on digital, and I feel it can become very cluttered as well for the collaboration to stand out, unless giving a shock value. I feel that's when it definitely works, or you've done something very differently and smartly. Otherwise, I feel like in 2 days, no, it can actually die down.
No, I saw this actually with films. Can't place it when, but films are always promoted external from Instagram. And I started seeing a lot of the actors. Actually, a very close college friend of mine is Dhwani Bhanashali, and when she put out one music video, and it was the first time she told me, she's like, this time I have to put a trend deal of my music video. And I was like, what do you mean you have to put? She's like, that's how it'll grow. And then I started seeing so many, even Anaya Pandey did it, and everything else that she did, right? Control that she was doing. She ensured that there was a channel of Instagram Reels as a distribution space for your customers.
100%.
Whatever worked for advertising and marketing back in the day is still very much there, but how you evolve it to meet your new customer is the most
Very important.
We have partnerships and collaborations that can happen online and offline. From both of your experiences, have you been able to identify any success, especially because you've been in the alcobev industry, you've not had much to do online. I think IPL also recently decided to ban promotions of alcohol brands, etc. Obviously keeping their viewers in mind. But that makes it even more difficult for me to go about these partnerships. So if you both could just share a little insight on maybe you on partnerships online and you on partnerships offline, and what is that world all about?
No, sure. In fact, actually, a lot of brands, if you see today, are engaging in a lot of, are playing very big on offline. Coming to alcobev, so ours, there is a very, very limited or pretty much non-existent marketing that one can do, right? So it definitely is challenging, but at the same time, very exciting as well. But what we try and do is we focus again on the consumer experience. For example, I think when so we have like 5 variants. We have a coffee rum, we have a coconut rum, we have a lemon, and we have a spiced rum, and we have a white rum. Now, given the range, right, I cannot really, how do I communicate to you, right? Since I can't advertise, you don't know I have 5 variants, right? But like, for example, what we do is at an offline experience, we'll either do like a fun mixology, where we get you to try all the 5 products, make different cocktails. We'll make it a fun session for you where, you're out with your friends. This is a brand that is there. You've gotten to try different flavors, and you've had some great cocktails, right? Or you'll be like a masterclass where, we take you through a whole tasting experience, right? Which is the notes, how does it taste? How can you have it at home? Things like that, So we've tried to focus a lot in terms of building experiences for the consumer.
That helps with like loyalty and just building like a community for your brand.
No, for sure. Even the Shark Tank experience, right? While that sort of created a huge brand awareness and visibility for us, right? But after that, what? So that's why it's even more important that I think every either event you do or every experience that you offer, right? You try to make sure that there is some form of recall for the brand. So in my experience, that's been at least on the offline
Interesting. Level. You're right about D2C brands, I think, because you also work with founders. They're all now having that thing that, no, let me go offline.
100%.
And while I agree to what you said about like the online being a little saturated, but still at the same time, it's ever growing.
It is. It will continue to grow. What I mean is, it's not that it will not grow. You will still get a lot of sales online, because I think India right now, and at the price sensitive, the market that it is, right, convenience matters a lot more. So how easily a product is available, how quickly it reaches you. We've seen the boom of quick commerce, right? That alone speaks. So I think it's only going to grow. But I also feel for the brand to build scale, right? And to actually become, it can't just be an online brand anymore. I think it has to move into the offline space as well.
Okay. Interesting. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I couldn't agree more on, your views from the offline space. I think there's so much one can do with micro communities, but I also feel like when a brand is just starting off, again, I'm talking more emerging brands here, uh, going offline is expensive.
It is.
For the kind of reach that you can get, right? Which is why if you are a, emerging brand on a shoestring budget, it's always easier to start with online because with, let's say, the same kind of effort and spending, you can get to a much wider audience. And you can also be a lot more targeted about who you can use the technology to target the right kind of people as well, right?
Of course, I fully know this whole boom in 2020 that happened with the number of brands. Like you just saw like every industry had at least 10 minimum. Like that's how much was coming in. And what you said about offline, I think offline is something that comes much later in your journey. As an early stage founder, I think online becomes like your testing period. And then offline
I think that's
becomes
changed. Back in the day, it was offline, then online. Now it's become online and then offline. And I feel like this is just cycle, right? It keeps changing. But just to add, right, I feel like the big pro of being online, right, is it gives you a lot of data. And a lot of data, like in offline, right, that is one challenge that we face, right? No matter how many activations, events, and consumer experiences you do, right, it is still very hard to get data.
It's all manual, so how you
it's all manual and and just to even if you figure or crack how to collect data, right, say somebody's coming to an event, you get their number and all, it's still so small. I mean, it's like say 100 people event, right? For the cost, the money spent to collect data of 100 people or to build that experience is of course way higher than, like she said, right, online. It's comparatively not as expensive, although I do feel like today's spending on ads has become so expensive.
Because of competition, it's become like the performance market industry is just I think also it's because of this whole omni-channel presence that came in, right? I think it's been almost a year now since since quick commerce came into place, and then people started saying just be available wherever your customers are. And that's also like a little bit of pressure when it comes as an early stage founder, right? Like how do I can't possibly be everywhere. It's not at all possible. But even in terms of growth, it depends on how you navigate. And offline takes time. It's like a very time-consuming process.
And capital intensive.
Yeah, and capital intensive. I like the point that you said about data. So in offline, whenever you are doing offline collaborations, etc., right, what is the importance of data and how are you able to understand consumer behavior like that? Because how else do you make your further marketing decisions without understanding your consumer? Because on online now I have MS Clarity that shows me exactly what the user is doing on the website.
So see, in case of larger events, right, like if you look at today a Lollapalooza or any of the concerts, right, those kind, I think there's a lot of data coming because the tickets are booked online. So invariably, I think there is access to data. You know what kind of people are going for these events, and similar people will sort of be interested in other kind of events, and from that. So I think for organizers and all, it sort of does come in handy. But I think when it comes to brands, this data is not easily available. It doesn't really get passed on to brands. So I guess you have to find sort of different ways again to sort of be able to collect data, but you're not able to do it at scale. At least we've not been able to so far crack it in terms of being able to be like, okay, for next event, it's still far more of a gut, the kind of experience you see a consumer having, the feedback that you get.
Yeah, the conversations you have with your customer.
But I also feel that in sometimes, it's helpful because you're getting a direct feedback. So like today, if I know that you really enjoyed the coconut rum, for example, right, and say 6 of your friends as well, I know that's like my hero product, and for my next event, that particular one is going to be there, and then I may play around with others, right?
I completely agree. I feel like, especially if you're in a F&B related, if you have a F&B related product, it is critical to get your product in as many mouths as you possibly can, right? So, we had done this one thing. I was working with a brand that was a candy brand, and it was a kids candy brand. And we had a very strong offline strategy. So we partnered with a lot of schools for like their sports days and stuff like that. We also partnered with a lot of these kids focused play areas and stuff. And one hack, you always have to think about hacks, right? And one hack that we kind of thought of during that time to collect customer data was any of the, obviously kids won't come on their own, their parents would come with them, and we'd give them, obviously we'd give the kid a candy to try, and in most cases the kids really liked it, and the mom would be like, oh, this is great, and of course it was like a healthy candy brand and stuff. So we said, you know what, if you really like it, why don't you write down your kid's birthday and your number, and on your kid's birthday month we'll give you like a special discount on our party pack, so you can distribute this healthy candy in school. So
Interesting.
Interesting.
The
Very
moms-
interesting.
Yeah, so the moms were like, of course, sure, they started giving us their numbers, kids' name, this, that, left, right and center. And that became such an interesting acquisition hook for us. And we really saw a good amount of, a spike in orders. We would just make sure all we had to do is then feed that back into like a database and ensure that we were triggering the right messages to them online. So I think when done smartly, this blend of online and offline can be done really well. But I completely echo Bhavna's thoughts that no one's been able to do this really well at scale yet.
Yeah.
But both of y'all mentioned something interesting, and that was a very interesting insight that y'all did, because like you said, you gave something to the customer. Now the mother will 100% want that kid to give, and you'll get your data that way. Let's share some insights on like how can I crack the code to a successful collaboration, because a collaboration is not always about, okay, let me give you my product, you give me your product, right? The people are doing collaborations in so many different ways. Like Freakins as a brand, what they did was, when we started as a jeans brand, they put out this one information online which was telling me, at that time, boyfriend jeans, body, all this was like new. They said, okay, if you have an hourglass body, these type of jeans will go. So for me, a person like me who's not so formal in styling, I think that was like, wow, like you're just like saving the day for me. Then obviously they were very focused on the denims and that industry. Then they started partnering with all these mini creators and having limited editions with the creators. Nish Hair founder did, right? Paru Gulati, she did like an entire series with them, which is very like her. And I really resonate with her. So every piece in her collection resonated with me. So now that's one way to do a collaboration. What you're doing is a different way in which I'm leveraging this entire partnership to drive. What are these different thoughts? And more than thoughts, I think ideas can come from multiple different causes. How do you all approach it to get these ideas? And how can founders listening to this episode take back something and actually implement it for a more successful or a fruitful partnership?
One is, common audience. 2 is seasonality. 3 is, like I said earlier also, always go one step further. A collaboration, like you also rightly said, cannot just be, I have one product, you have one product, let's just put it in one box and, call it a day. Sometimes a collaboration can be for pure shock value and pure marketing. So for example, there is a platform called Mischief, you guys may have heard of it. They did a Fenty Beauty X Heinz collaboration where they were actually these like, sachets of Heinz ketchup, some of which had ketchup and some actually had like red Fenty Beauty lip gloss, which I thought was, again, you're not going to get any sales out of that, but the kind of buzz it created was, I think, tremendous. So I think it's important to think along those lines as well in an interesting way. Another great example was when the Barbie movie was releasing. The amount of collaborations that came out of that was incredible. Amazing. It was incredible,
It
right?
made me also go back to me. I have seen the whole movie. I don't care what the reviews were, but I was like, the 15-year-old me had fun. That's all that I cared about,
And I think the Barbie movie is a masterclass in collaborations and partnerships done beautifully. I think, like for example, Airbnb actually created the Barbie house. Like, that's awesome, dude. I want to go stay there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I think every little girl at one point always wants.
exactly. So I think it's very important. Like, so these shock value things also kind of work.
Just a quick follow-up to something that you said, because I work as a service provider for a lot of businesses. They start very late. So I get a call for Diwali saying, "Acha, Diwali sale is starting, but you figure it out. Let's get a gift hamper. Let's get a shoot done. And I'm just like, so basically my team does overwork during the festive season. How early should a brand start planning?
Honestly, nowadays I feel like with Diwali, you need to start like
Now?
Start now. Because you have to get to, first you have to ideate. Then think of which brands you can go after. Get in touch with those brands. Convince those brands. Then get to production. Everybody has different production cycles. If you don't start well in advance, you're never going to get 100% product out there. And then why do you, I'm not saying you have to have 100%, but why do you want to do like a half-baked thing, right?
We often tend to always value our customers in the metro cities. We assume they are the main customers. Recent trends tell us otherwise. Tier 2, Tier 3 is really growing. So can you all tell me a little bit about what is this customer psyche for Tier 2, Tier 3 if you have had an experience of working with them or understanding their behavior?
Today, when I look at sales trends for a lot of my clients, you're getting so much from Tier 2 and Tier 3, cities. And the fact of the matter is that there are a lot of people there with a lot of disposable income and not enough avenues to burn them, you know what I mean, and to spend it. So I think if you're smart enough to kind of get on to that and target the right kind of, niches obviously within those customers as well, because yes, there's a certain amount of price sensitivity still over there. I think if you can crack that code really well, it's a gold mine of opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you. As Mumbaiites, I feel when I started my business I was very like chilling Mumbai founders, Delhi founders, Bangalore founders, all in the same vibe. And I got a client from Chikmagalur. I got a client from Jaipur, and they were so excited to talk to me because I was giving them access to Mumbai. And that's when I realized that firstly, they look at Mumbai as a goal, as a benchmark, which we take as like, oh, it's our city types. And secondly, like, they really want to grow. They
100%.
want to like build that space, and they have such a good supporting local community. So I think a lot of brands need to capitalize into Tier 2.
For sure.
There's a huge opportunity, like I completely agree with Vishakha, right? That I think, but also I do feel it depends brand to brand.
Of course.
I do feel which segment, right? If you are a slightly more niche, a certain kind of brand catering to a more metro audience, for sure it will work more there, and then you have to communicate and build your entire communication around that. But the opportunity, like I'll give you a case in example, which most people get very surprised, right? So for us, actually Maharashtra, so we are currently in 9 states. We are in Maharashtra, Goa, Pondicherry, West Bengal, Tripura, Meghalaya, and Goa. So, we actually get very, very good results from West Bengal. From Tripura, Meghalaya, we just probably shipped out like last month. Our coffee round got sold out.
Wow.
We've not done any marketing. We've not done a single event. Same goes for West Bengal. Same goes for, some of these smaller markets which are not focused. And the kind of inquiries and interest that we've been getting from some of the markets outside of the metro cities has been phenomenal. Like, and we've not seen that kind of growth in Maharashtra, Goa. While they've done well for us, and they are, I think, good brand building markets, right? And it's good to be present. But I feel like the opportunity, right? And the more that we are trying to study and understand, the potential to get some solid numbers, especially for a mass premium brand in Tier 2 cities, Tier 3 cities is huge.
I think that acceptance of Indian products is also a lot more compared to metro.
They actually vote.
Because I'm constantly comparing to international brands.
100%.
Feel like, people in other cities, one, feel more connected to Indian homegrown brands. Second, I feel like that little aspirational value, like you said, right? A client from Jaipur feels that, right? Similarly, I feel even for products, right? It's very similar where they feel like, it's from India only and it looks really nice, let me try it out. Which I feel not many brands are focusing on, and I think a lot of burn is happening towards just focusing on thinking that purchasing power is here, which is untrue. There is purchasing power even in other cities.
I think it's a matter of, like you rightly said, India is an extremely aspirational country. I think it's the best time to be in the country. You're seeing so many more millionaires literally coming up by the day, like people you've never heard of. And let's be honest, the generations that are coming after that are reaping the benefits of that. And so how many people do you know who, like, let's say our friends have a certain kind of lifestyle and a certain kind of, way that they want to present themselves and the things that they buy. But you look at their parents, you look at their grandparents, the ones who have actually created the wealth. They're such, they're very different. They mimic a very different kind of India. So I think I think you're seeing a very similar kind of, behavior happening the rest of the country as well.
They say India is a diverse nation. I think someone had told me this, which stuck with me, is the consumer behavior changes every 5 kilometers in our country.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, and you have to understand that, you have to cater to that.
Yeah.
And which is why, like nowadays, with this much sort of diverse understanding and empowerment that's coming in, people are now looking at India as the next booming place, because people are getting empowered in tier 2 and tier 3. One last question, before we get into a fun segment. Women are obviously known as the people who can bargain the best.
Yeah.
That's known, right? But I see women struggle with negotiation. So I studied in Babson. I did an entrepreneurship sort of a summer school there, and they taught me art of negotiation, and they taught me through prisoner's dilemma. The most typical game to learn, like the whole negotiation spectrum. Then I understood how it is. And obviously when I had to do it for my business, I would like cry and sweat at me, like, okay, let me get all the strength and, go and negotiate. Since you all both have been at the forefront of constantly negotiating, you've been like in media, so I'm sure it was not at all easy.
I was famous and infamous for negotiation.
I'm sure.
Depending on which side is
Depending on which
talking.
side, yeah, exactly. What has your experience been with negotiation? And maybe Shah can share some tips for women, any and every woman who's wanting to become negotiation front, because that's the only way you can crack a deal.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to see any of the other partnerships, etc., come through. So
I feel like it is a skill set that you sort of grow year on year. And I think there comes a point where, you just realize that, you're just pretty good at it. Like for me, I would say in the first 5 years of my job, I was decent, but I wouldn't say I was the best. I'd seen, but I always learned, observed, saw some of the people who were doing it better than me, learned from them, took down pointers as well. And I think there came a point, like, I can proudly say I was probably one of the best negotiators in the room. But it's something you just keep working on.
I think experience is your best.
Experience, practice,
Yeah, interesting.
Like, let's think about it in a very first principles format, right? Negotiation in its inherent form is a conflict, right? Your two parties or multiple parties coming in which with their own interests in mind, and here you have to go and ensure that your interest is the one that comes out on top, right? Nobody likes conflict, least of all, I think, women. Like, we've been kind of conditioned to being like, no, always take the middle ground, don't argue, be the higher person, all of that. So I think first and foremost, for women, you have to be comfortable with the conflict. It's easier said than done. That's number one. So just like inherently just be like, what, just because somebody says something, it's not a personal attack. It's just business, right? I think that's number one. Number two, before going in, and I completely echo Bhavna's point, it is practice, which is why until you don't become an expert at it, which I don't think anybody really does become, but initially you have to think about what you want from that negotiation, right? Like, I always do this. I always think of what is like best case scenario, middle case scenario, worst case scenario, and what am I okay to like leave, right? Because at the end of the day, you can't just go and be like, "Na meko sab kuch chahiye." Like, I'm not budging. That also doesn't work.
Point.
And at the same time, I can be like, take it all and just whatever. So you have to find a middle ground. So if you don't know what you want, what are you going to negotiate on, right? That's number two. Number three is, I feel like you rightly said, right? Women have been doing this for years and years, and I feel like women have this I think women are better listeners, right? And I feel like active listening as a skill can really come to use, because at the end of the day, what are you trying to do when you crack a deal, right? You want to ensure that both parties, or how many other parties are there, are getting what they want. If you don't know what the other person wants, if you're not going to listen to them actively, you're never going to be able to come to a middle ground. So actively listening can be a huge superpower, while not just sitting there quietly also, right? So being able to kind of put your point across.
But I like the point that you said, right? If I go with I need to go with an open, compromising mindset.
Yeah,
So that's how a collaboration will work. It's not, it's never going to be 80% me and 20% the other person. Then that's not a negotiation. You just kind of ordering what you want.
You're like steamrolling someone, right?
Exactly.
Of course, a lot of people work that way. Not going to say what gender, nothing, but you know what I mean? But
I need some fun stories from that, maybe offline.
Sometimes I feel like sometimes if a negotiation doesn't work, this persistence always pays. Like, there have been times when I was at Zomato, for example, I still remember Like there was this one restaurant I used to go to. The watchman became friends with me. The waiters became friends with me. I would go there, had a regular order. Then I would sit and I like order and just wait there with a check in my hand and waiting for the owner to come in, and he'd look at me. He'd walk away, go back to doing his job. I'd come back every single day with that check in my hand.
Wow.
One day, I think I did this for maybe like a week or something. Finally, on like day 8 when he came, he wrote a number on the check. I was like, cool. Because we had already kind of done a lot of negotiation then. And I was like,
But no,
sign it.
persistence.
Persistence
pays
is
off,
a
for
very,
sure.
very, I think it's a skill that one must always be comfortable with and should learn.
Interesting. Thank you so much. I think didn't realize where time went, but the conversation was just so exciting. I think it's fun to have women with a very similar vibe, right? When you just sit and chat.
Yeah,
There's a lot to
absolutely.
learn
Yeah.
from each other. So we're going to have a quick fun segment. We're going to play a Never Have I Ever. This is going to be, we're going to give you placards. So you can just select, I'm going to tell you the prompt and we just have to do a Never Have I Ever. And then we'll close for the episode.
Cool.
Okay, so you guys have your placards. So let's quickly start with a fun Never Have I Ever. No judgment zone. So let's just be as honest as we can. Okay. Never have I ever been told that I'm too emotional to run a business. Think we all have.
Yeah.
Never have I ever made a marketing campaign that completely flopped.
Yes and no. Like somewhere in between.
Okay. Never have I ever spent way too much money on ads which didn't work.
No. I'm a very conjuice person that way, so I'll never do that.
Okay. Never have I ever copied a competitor's marketing strategy just to see if it worked. Never have I ever emailed a big brand for a collaboration and actually got a reply. Yes. Never have I ever cried in office because of work stress.
A lot.
My God. Let me like wave this like a flag now.
Yeah. I used to cry like in a shed because I was very scared.
I would-
I'm
one
still
second.
scared to cry in front of my team.
Go to the bathroom, one second. No.
But I don't think I can ever show them that side of me, but I'm kind of easing into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough to do that. Never have I ever partnered with a brand just because they were trendy at that time.
Yeah.
Okay. Never have I ever pretended to be super confident in a sales pitch while I'm freaking out inside.
Always. We were just talking about this, like fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you
That's
make
what
it.
we are doing today as well.
100%.
That's what I have been doing. I need to tell you all that. But thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Just to kind of conclude the episode for everybody, some takeaways from things that you all actually mentioned is one, partnerships is a blend of sales and marketing, if you view it that way. Every offline event you do, please ensure there is some sort of brand recall that comes back to you. Go one step further when you're doing collaborations, go the extra mile, because that's when you know the customers, that's when your customers know that you've made the effort. Always think of your customer. Customer is king. I don't think that's good.
Queen. Yeah.
Queen. Yes, customer is queen. Yes, customer is queen. And lastly, I think what we just took from our last conversation was that when you're going into negotiation, go with an open mindset to find a middle ground, and that would be a much more fruitful conversation. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. It was really exciting to do this episode with you. I hope you guys had fun.
We had
We did. Thank
great
you for
time.
having
Yeah,
us.
thank you for having us. We had a lovely time.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in into this fun episode. If you like this format and what we did, please like, share and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next one.